My neighbor caught me watching her, through the window, then told me to stop hiding. Sarah caught me staring at her through the kitchen window while I was watering my lawn, and instead of closing the blinds like a normal person, she slid the window open and laughed. "Mark, are you going to come over?" she called. "Or are you planning to drown that grass while pretending you weren't looking?" I looked down at the hose in my hand. Water was running straight over my shoes. "That depends," I called back. "Are we calling this trespassing, neighborhood outreach, or public humiliation?" She leaned on the window frame, smiling like she had all evening. "I'm calling it dinner. You can bring your shame with you." That was Sarah. At least, that was the version I knew from across the fence. Quick mouth, bright eyes. A woman who looked like she still had fight in her, even on the days she carried her trash cans out like the world had been leaning on her shoulders. She lived in the little white house next to mine in a quiet street outside Columbus, Ohio. I had been her neighbor for 8 months, and in those 8 months I had said maybe 12 complete sentences to her. Not because I didn't notice her. I noticed her too much. I had been divorced for almost 2 years by then. My ex-wife had ended our marriage the old-fashioned way: lies, secret weekends, and a man named Trevor who owned more hair product than common sense. After that, I got very good at being practical. Work, bills, groceries, yard, gym, home. I didn't chase drama. I didn't make myself available for anyone else's unfinished business. And I absolutely did not walk into the home of a recently separated neighbor just because she caught me watching her move around her kitchen. So naturally, 10 minutes later, I was standing on Sarah's porch holding a bag of hamburger buns like an apology. She opened the door before I knocked. "You brought buns?" I panicked. "That's your emergency contribution?" I considered flowers, but that felt like a confession. I considered nothing, but that felt like a crime. She took the bag from me and stepped aside. "Come in, bun man. Please don't let that stick." No promises. Her house was warm in a lived-in way, not messy, not staged, just real. A pan on the stove, mail on the counter, a half-empty glass of iced tea near the sink. She had been making burgers, and I could smell onions in the skillet. "I should say," I told her, staying close to the door. I wasn't trying to be creepy. "Oh, good. I was worried you were committed to the role. I was watering the lawn. You were watering the sidewalk. Fair correction." She turned the burner lower and glanced back at me. "You've been looking over here for weeks." That shut me up. She didn't say it like an accusation, more like she was just pointing out that my truck was blue. I cleared my throat. "I didn't think you noticed. I'm a woman living alone. I notice everything. That makes this worse. It would be worse if you looked like the type who collects locks of hair. I don't even collect coupons." She laughed, and something in my chest loosened against my better judgment. Dinner started awkward, then got easier. She handed me plates without asking. I sliced tomatoes because she told me I looked like a man who needed a task. We ate at her small kitchen table with the back door open. She asked what I did. I told her I managed logistics for a medical supply company, which sounded more important than spending half my week solving delivery mistakes made by people named Kyle. "What about you?" I asked. "I'm a dental hygienist." That explains the judgmental look at my soda. I was being professional. "You looked at that like it owed you money." "It does. Future money." She asked about my family. I told her my parents were in Dayton, my sister was in Nashville, and I had a friend named Ben who thought grilling counted as a spiritual practice. She told me she grew up in Lancaster, her parents still lived there, and her mother believed every problem in life could be improved by casserole or criticism. "That's a strong toolbox," I said. "She's very proud of it." The conversation moved the way good conversation does when both people pretend they aren't enjoying it too much. We talked about garbage pickup, bad neighbors, grocery store rotisserie chicken, and why every suburban street had one guy who treated leaf blowing like combat training. Then I made the mistake. I saw the ring line on her finger. It was faint, but there. I looked away too late. She caught it. "You're wondering," she said. "I wasn't going to ask, but now your face did." "My face has poor boundaries." She set her napkin beside her plate. "My husband and I are separated. I'm sorry, don't be. He had company for the end of the marriage." The room got quieter. I didn't ask details. I knew that tone. It wasn't anger anymore. It was the tired voice people get after anger has had time to become paperwork. "Yeah," I said. "I know that particular circus." Her eyes shifted to me. "You too?" My ex-wife had a side project named Trevor. Sarah looked down, then gave one sharp little laugh. Mine was a fitness instructor named Kelsey. That's rough. She wore motivational tank tops. Okay, now I'm angry for you. Sarah smiled, but it didn't stay. I thought I was embarrassed because he left, she said. Turns out I was embarrassed because I stayed after I knew. That landed harder than I expected. I looked at my plate because sometimes eye contact feels like pressure when someone has just handed you something true. I stayed 6 months after I knew, I admitted. Told myself I was being mature. Really, I was just negotiating with a house fire. She studied me for a second. Did you still love her? I loved who I thought she was. That's different. Sarah nodded slowly. I hate that I understand that. I should have left after dinner. I even stood up. This was nice, I said, and I mean that in the least suspicious way possible. She started gathering plates. You're leaving already? I don't want to be the neighbor who comes over once and suddenly thinks he has porch privileges. You can have limited porch privileges. That sounds like a government program. She rinsed a plate, then turned off the water. Stay for a movie. I looked toward the door. Sarah, it's just a movie, Mark. I'm not asking you to build a life in my living room. That's oddly specific. I like to be clear. I should have said no, not because I didn't want to stay, because I did. That was the problem. I had spent 2 years keeping my life clean and quiet, and Sarah had opened a window and made it feel small. What movie? I asked. Something terrible, so neither of us gets emotionally attached. Smart. Low-risk cinema. She picked a forgettable action movie with explosions every 7 minutes and a plot that gave up halfway through. We sat on opposite ends of the couch like two adults pretending distance made things simple. 20 minutes in, she tucked one leg under herself. 40 minutes in, she stopped making jokes. An hour in, her head dropped against my shoulder. I didn't move. Her breathing settled. The movie kept making expensive nonsense on the screen. I sat there with one arm trapped between us, looking at the paused muscles in my own hand like it belonged to someone else. This was how trouble started, I told myself. Not with bad intentions, with comfort, with one person feeling safe for 10 minutes, with another person wanting to protect that feeling and not knowing whether he had the right. I fell asleep sitting up. Morning came with sunlight through the blinds and a stiff neck that felt like punishment from common sense. Sarah woke first. She pulled away fast. Oh my God, I'm sorry. You drooled on me, I said. She froze. I did? No. But your face made that worth it. She hit my arm with the back of her hand. That's not funny. It was a little funny. She looked embarrassed, then softer. I didn't mean to fall asleep on you. I didn't think it was a strategy. It's just. She rubbed her forehead. I haven't slept like that in a long time. I didn't make a joke. She wasn't fishing for one. Me neither, I said. She looked at me carefully. That scares me. It should. You always say comforting things. I work in logistics. We specialize in bad news with spreadsheets. That got a small smile out of her. We made coffee. She gave me a mug that said, "Floss like a boss," and I told her I respected the intimidation tactic. I left before the morning turned into something we had to name, but after that, the neighborhood changed. Sarah started waving from her porch instead of pretending she hadn't seen me. I started finding reasons to be outside when she came home from work. She asked me to help move a patio table. I asked if she wanted burgers at my place, since I owed her a dinner not built around my emotional support buns. The first time she came over, she stood in my kitchen and looked around. So this is where you hide. I prefer strategically withdraw. You own 3 pans and all of them look unused. That's unfair. One was used in 2021. She opened a cabinet. Mark, what? You have 1 plate. I live alone. You have 4 coffee mugs. I respect coffee more than dinner. She shook her head. You need help. I was doing fine before the inspection. No, you were surviving with decent countertops. That became our rhythm. A little teasing, a little honesty. A lot of stopping before the line got too clear. We had backyard dinners. We drank iced tea on my porch after work. She told me about patients who lied about flossing with the confidence of criminals. I told her about drivers who could lose a pallet inside a building and still ask if it was my fault. Sometimes we sat too close. Sometimes we stopped talking at the time and both pretended the silence wasn't full of things we weren't ready to say. One Saturday evening, she helped me plant a row of boxwoods along the fence. You know, she said, pressing dirt around one plant, for a man who claims he wants privacy, you picked shrubs that take years to grow. I'm patient. No, you're cautious. Those are cousins. She looked at me across the dirt. Do you regret coming over that first night? No, too fast. I'm efficient, Mark. I wiped my hands on a towel. No, I don't regret it. She nodded, but she didn't look relieved. My divorce isn't final, she said. I know. I mean really, it's not just emotional leftovers. There's property, the house, accounts. My parents still think I should be careful how things look. Are you asking me to back off? I'm telling you there's more mud here than you can see from your lawn. That's usually true of lawns. Don't joke. I stopped. Okay, she looked down at the plant between us. I like being around you. That's the problem. Terrible burden. I'll try to be less pleasant. Mark. I like being around you too, I said, and I know your life isn't simple right now. Mine wasn't simple either. This could make things worse. It could. You're not supposed to agree that fast. I'm not selling you anything. She watched me for a long moment. That's one of the reasons I trust you. I had no clean answer to that. Some sentences are too good and too dangerous, so I picked up the shovel. Then we'll be careful. She gave me a look. Careful how? No sneaking, no using each other to feel better, no pretending this is nothing if it stops being nothing. Her expression shifted. And if it already stopped being nothing? I leaned on the shovel and let myself look at her. Then we say it slower. She smiled faintly. You're infuriating. I've heard steady. From who? My mother. She loves you. Doesn't count. We didn't kiss that night. Not because I didn't want to. Because she was still half bound to a man who would use anything against her, and I had learned the hard way that desire without timing can make decent people act stupid. For a while, careful worked. Until her ex-husband pulled into her driveway on a Thursday evening like a man arriving to collect property. His name was Derek. I knew it before she told me. Not because I was gifted. Because he stepped out of a dark sedan wearing the expression of a man who still believed every room belonged to him if he talked loud enough. Sarah and I were in her backyard. We had been eating takeout at the patio table. Nothing dramatic, nothing hidden. We were laughing because she had just told me a patient tried to blame bleeding gums on aggressive lettuce. Derek came through the side gate without knocking. Well, he said, holding up his phone. There it is. Sarah stood. Get out. He lifted the phone and snapped pictures, me at her table, her beside me, the takeout, the 2 glasses. I stepped forward, put the phone down. Derek looked me over. You the neighbor? I'm the man telling you to put the phone down. He laughed. That's cute. Does she tell all her sad little rescue projects to act tough? Sarah moved between us. Derek, leave. No, this is perfect. He took another picture. My attorney is going to love this. Sarah went pale. I looked at her. What is he talking about? Derek grinned. She didn't tell you? We're still married. And she's been playing house with you next door while crying poor over the property settlement. Sarah's voice went low. You don't get to do this. I'm already doing it. He aimed the phone again, and I stepped into the shot on purpose. Good, I said. Get my face. Make sure they know I'm the neighbor you walked in on while trespassing. His grin slipped. I'm allowed to be here. No, you're not, Sarah said. You moved out. You don't have permission to come through my gate. You want to talk permission? Leave, she said. Now. Derek looked at me again. You think you're special? No, I answered. I think you're blocking a gate. He stared for a second, then smiled like he had found a new game. You two deserve each other. He left through the gate, but the air didn't clear after him. Sarah sat down slowly. Her hands were steady, but her face wasn't. I'm sorry, she said. For what? For dragging you into it. You didn't drag me. I walked over voluntarily. There were buns involved. She didn't smile. He's going to use those pictures. Can he? He can try. He's been trying to make me look like the reason the marriage ended. If he can make it look like I was involved with someone before we separated, he thinks he can pressure me on the house. But you weren't. Facts haven't been his favorite hobby lately. I wanted to say something confident, something clean. But I also knew how people like Derek worked. They took normal things and made them look ugly. A dinner became proof. A laugh became betrayal. A neighbor became a weapon. Sarah looked at me. You should go home. No, Mark, no. Not because you told me to. Her eyes sharpened. This isn't the moment to be stubborn. I'm not being stubborn. I'm not letting him decide that I run because he waved a phone around. You don't understand. I understand enough. No, you don't. Her voice broke, then she caught it. My parents already think I embarrassed them. My mother asked me last week if maybe Derek felt neglected. My father keeps saying I should be strategic. If Derek sends them pictures of you here, then we tell the truth. She gave a tired laugh. You make that sound easy. No, I make it sound possible. She looked away. For the first time since that window, I felt the distance come back, not because we wanted it, because someone had shoved it between us. The next week was bad. Derek sent the pictures around with a story attached. He told Sarah's parents I had been coming over before the separation. He told mutual friends she had moved on while pretending to be hurt. He posted vague garbage online about learning who people really are, the kind of thing cowards write when they want attention without accountability. Sarah stopped coming over. At first she texted, "I'm sorry, I need to handle family stuff." Then, my mom called again. It was bad. Then, "I don't want you taking heat for me." I called. She didn't answer. On the fourth day, I saw her in the driveway with her phone pressed to her ear. She looked toward my house, then away. I didn't cross the yard. Every instinct in me wanted to. Every hard-earned rule told me that if I charged into the middle of it, Derek would get exactly what he wanted, a scene. So I did the thing I hated. I waited. Ben came over that Saturday with ribs and the emotional sensitivity of a socket wrench. "You look awful," he said, walking into my kitchen. "Good to see you too." He set the foil pan down. "This about the neighbor? Don't start." "I'm not starting. I'm observing. You've been cleaning your garage for 3 hours. Nobody cleans a garage that hard unless a woman is involved or a raccoon died. No raccoon, so woman." I opened the fridge. "She's dealing with a divorce." "And you're dealing with what? Your ancient curse?" I gave him a look. He held up both hands. "Sorry. Your very valid emotional safety protocol. You done?" "No." "You like her?" "Yes." "She like you?" "I think so." "You doing anything shady?" "No." "Then stop acting like standing near her is a felony. It could hurt her case. Then be smart, don't be dramatic, but don't disappear and call it noble." That annoyed me because it was useful. That night I texted Sarah, "I'm not going to push, but I'm here. Also, Ben says I'm acting like a haunted filing cabinet, so if you need a laugh, there's that." She replied 20 minutes later, "That sounds accurate." Then nothing. 2 more days passed. When she finally came to my door, she looked exhausted. She didn't come in. She stood on the porch with her arms folded. "I need to say something," she said. "Okay? I think we should stop." I kept my hand on the doorframe. "Stop what?" "This. Seeing each other. Talking like we talk. Whatever we're doing." "That sounds like a decision you rehearsed." "I did. Did it sound better in rehearsal?" "Don't make me laugh." "I'm not trying to." She looked down at the porch boards. "My life is a mess, Mark. I thought I was almost out of it, and now it's everywhere. My parents won't listen. Derek is twisting everything. And you." She looked back at me. "You were finally calm before I pulled you into this." "You didn't pull me. I invited you over because you were staring through my window. That is legally accurate. I'm serious. So am I." Her eyes filled, but she didn't let it become more than that. "I can't be the reason your life gets ugly again." I wanted to step closer. I didn't. "That's not your call. It is if I leave." There it was, the old place inside me, the one that said, "Don't argue, don't ask, don't give anyone the chance to choose you twice because the second time they might not." So I nodded. "If that's what you want, I'll respect it." Her face changed like she had expected me to fight. "That's it? You asked for space. I know. I'm giving it." She looked hurt, which made no sense and perfect sense. "Right," she said. "Sarah." She stopped on the first step. "If this is what you truly want, I won't chase you. But if this is Derek talking through your fear, don't hand him my chair and invite him to sit between us." She looked back. "That's annoyingly clear. I've been saving it." She gave the smallest smile, then left. I watched her cross the lawn and hated every mature bone in my body. The next few days were quiet in a way that made my house feel too organized. I went to work. I answered emails. I fixed a broken shelf in the garage. I made dinner on one of my 3 pans, just to spite her absent judgment. At night I found myself looking at her window again, not the way I had before, not with curiosity, with worry. On Friday just after midnight I woke up and couldn't get back to sleep. I got water, walked into the kitchen, and saw movement outside. A man was crouched beside Sarah's car. At first my brain tried to make it harmless. A shadow, a raccoon, some neighbor's kid being stupid. Then he stood enough for me to see his face. Derek. He bent again and I saw the tool in his hand press into her rear tire. Everything in me wanted to run outside and put him on the pavement. That would have felt good for about 3 seconds. Then Derek would have a bruise, a story, and maybe exactly the kind of proof he wanted. So I grabbed my phone. I started recording through the window, then moved quietly out my back door and along the side of my house. I kept the phone up. I got him at the first tire, then the second. His face, his car in the street, the plate, the tool, all of it. When he moved toward the front tire, I turned on the porch light. Derek. He spun around. I kept the phone aimed at him. Smile, I said. You seem to like pictures. His face changed. Not fear exactly. Calculation. What are you doing? Recording a man damaging a woman's car after midnight. You don't know what you saw. I do. The phone does too. Very modern problem for you. He pointed the tool at me like a warning. Stay out of my marriage. Your marriage ended when you treated it like a rental car. Turn that off. No. He took a step toward me. I didn't move back. You come closer, I said, and this gets even clearer. A porch light came on across the street. Mrs. Alvarez, my neighbor from 2 houses down, opened her door. Mark? She called. Everything okay? I didn't look away from Derek. Call the police, please. Derek is damaging Sarah's car. Derek cursed under his breath. Mrs. Alvarez didn't hesitate. I'm calling now. Derek backed toward his car. This won't help her. It already did. He got in and drove off too fast. Sarah opened her front door in a robe, confused and scared. Mark? I lowered the phone. Don't step on the driveway. There may be sharp pieces near the tires. She looked at the car, then at me. What happened? Derek just punctured your tires. I recorded it. Her face went still. You what? I recorded everything. She crossed the yard barefoot before I could tell her not to. She stopped a few feet from me. You didn't go after him? I wanted to. Why didn't you? Because I'm tired of men like him getting to choose the battlefield. She covered her mouth for a second, then dropped her hand. I told you to stay away. You did. You listened. For a few days. I'm teachable, not obedient. She made a sound that was almost a laugh and almost something else. Mrs. Alvarez came down her porch steps with her phone still in hand. Police are on the way, she said. I saw him drive off. I can tell them that. Sarah turned to her. Thank you. Mrs. Alvarez looked at me. You got video? Yes, Mom. Good. I never liked that man's parking. Even in that mess, Sarah laughed. A real one. Small but real. The police came. I gave them the video. Sarah gave a statement. Mrs. Alvarez gave hers with the confidence of a woman who had been waiting years for someone to ask her opinion officially. After they left, Sarah and I stood beside her ruined tires in the quiet. I'm sorry, she said. No, Mark, no. You don't apologize for what he chose. She looked worn out. I pushed you away. I let you. Why? Because you asked, and because part of me was relieved to have an excuse to go back to my quiet little bunker. She looked at my house. Your bunker has one plate. It's a minimalist bunker. She turned back to me. I was scared. I know. I thought if I stayed away he'd stop using you. He didn't, no. So maybe the problem isn't that we stood too close. Her eyes stayed on mine. Maybe the problem is that he thought I'd keep backing up. That was the first moment I saw her come back to herself. Not fixed, not suddenly fearless, but present. The next morning she called her attorney and sent the video. I sat at her kitchen table while she did it, not because she needed me to speak, but because she had asked me to stay. Her attorney, a woman named Renee, sounded calm and very awake. Sarah, do not communicate with him directly, Renee said through the speaker. Send me the original video. Mark, are you willing to provide a statement? Yes. Good. Mrs. Alvarez too? She already offered, Sarah said. Renee paused. This changes things. Sarah closed her eyes. How much? A lot. He has been claiming you're unstable and dishonest while damaging your property and harassing you. Judges do not enjoy that combination. I leaned toward the phone. Is there anything I should not do? Yes, Renee said. Do not confront him. Do not post anything. Do not text him. Do not play hero. Sarah glanced at me. He hates that one. I can retire it, I said. Renee continued. Be boring, be factual, be available. That is the best help you can give. After the call, Sarah sat back. Boring and factual, she said. I've been training for this my whole life. She looked at me across the table. I don't want you to be my shield. I'm not. You kind of are. No, I'm a witness. There's a difference. She studied me. And if this gets uglier, then we stay boring and factual. You make that sound romantic. I'm pacing myself. That afternoon, her parents came over. I offered to leave, but Sarah shook her head. No, she said. Please stay. Her mother, Linda, came in carrying worry like it had handles. Her father, Paul, followed with the stiff walk of a man who didn't like being wrong but had started to suspect he might be. Linda looked at me, then at Sarah. Your attorney sent us the video. Sarah's jaw tightened. Okay. Paul cleared his throat. We owe you an apology. Sarah didn't soften right away. For which part? Linda flinched. Sarah, no, Mom. Which part? Believing Derek? Asking if I provoked him? Telling me to think about how things looked? Or calling Mark a complication when he was the only person not lying to me? I stood. I can step out. Sarah's hand moved slightly toward mine, then stopped. No, stay. Paul looked at me. Mark, I misjudged the situation. I nodded. Derek worked hard to make sure you would. Linda sat at the table. I thought if I stayed neutral, I was helping. Sarah laughed once. You weren't neutral. You were just quiet in his direction and loud in mine. That one hit. Even I felt it. Linda's eyes filled. I'm sorry. Sarah looked at her mother for a long time. I needed you. I know. No. You don't get to know it now and make it clean. I needed you when he was making me sound cheap and reckless. I needed you when I told you he had someone else and you asked what I had missed. Paul put a hand on Linda's shoulder. We were wrong. Sarah nodded slowly. Yes, you were. I had never been prouder of someone without touching them. After they left, she stood at the sink, staring into nothing. You okay? I asked. No, fair, but better. That counts. She turned. I was afraid if I accepted help, I'd become dependent. On me? On anyone. And now I think refusing help can become its own kind of cage. That sounded like something from a greeting card, but I'll allow it. She rolled her eyes, and for the first time in days her face looked like hers again. The legal part did not resolve overnight. Nothing real does. There were hearings, statements, more paperwork. Derek tried to explain the video as a misunderstanding, which was impressive considering he was on camera damaging 2 tires with the dedication of a man completing a checklist. He tried to claim he was upset. Renee handled that with the calm expression of someone who ate excuses for breakfast. When Sarah had to appear in court, she wore a navy dress and no wedding ring. I drove her because she asked me to, but I didn't walk in holding her hand like a man trying to make a point. I stayed beside her, close enough to be there, not close enough to turn her life into a performance. In the hallway, Derek saw us. He looked thinner, angrier, less polished. Well, he said, still playing the gentleman. I looked at him, still playing the defendant. Sarah made a small noise beside me. Derek's face tightened. You think this is funny? No, Sarah said before I could answer. I think it's over. He turned to her. You'll regret this. Renee appeared beside us like she had been summoned by bad behavior. Derek, she said, that sentence was a poor choice in a courthouse. He shut his mouth. Inside, the facts did what facts do when people finally stop burying them. The pictures he had taken in Sarah's backyard didn't prove what he wanted them to prove. The separation timeline mattered. His own messages mattered. The video mattered more. Mrs. Alvarez's statement mattered. The damage to Sarah's car mattered. The pattern mattered. The judge was not amused. By the end, Sarah kept the house on terms that were fair to her. Derek lost the leverage he had been trying to create, and a protective order put a hard legal wall where Sarah's polite boundaries had failed. He didn't leave with nothing in the dramatic movie sense. Real life has forms and signatures. But he left without control, without the story he had tried to sell, and without the ability to keep walking back into her life whenever he wanted attention. Outside the courthouse, Sarah stood on the steps and breathed like she had been carrying furniture for months. I handed her a bottle of water. You did it, I said. We did part of it, she answered. Rennie did a lot of it. Mrs. Alvarez would like credit too. She can have a statue. I smiled. Sarah looked at me. I need to say something, and I'm going to do it badly. My favorite category. I don't want you because you saved me. Good, that would be a terrible foundation. Also, I hate maintenance. I want you. Because when you had every reason to make this about your fear, you didn't. You stayed honest. You stayed careful. And when it mattered, you acted. I took that in. Slowly. I was scared the whole time. I know. I'm still scared. Me too. A group of people passed us on the steps, and we moved closer to the side. Sarah looked down, then back at me. I'm free now. Legally. Emotionally, I'm working on it. But I'm not asking you to be my next safe place because I'm tired. I'm asking because I choose you. Clear-eyed. No hiding. No using you to prove anything. My throat got tight, which annoyed me because I like to pretend I'm above basic human reactions. What are you asking? I said. She smiled a little. Dinner, tonight, your house. I'm bringing plates. That's aggressive. You need them. I have one, exactly. And after dinner? She stepped closer. We keep going, slowly, honestly. Like adults who know exactly how badly people can mess things up. That's your pitch? I'm a dental hygienist, not a poet. I accept. She looked at me for 1 second longer than she needed to, then kissed me. It wasn't dramatic, no music, no rain, No audience clapping because justice had finished its paperwork. Just Sarah's hand on my arm, my hand at her back, and both of us careful even then, because careful had become part of how we respected each other. That night she brought 4 plates, 2 bowls, and a skillet she said was for humanitarian reasons. You understand this is how household mergers start, I told her. This is not a merger. This is an intervention. I feel judged. You should. We cooked together in my kitchen. She moved like she belonged there and still asked before opening cabinets. I liked that about her. She didn't invade. She entered. Halfway through dinner she got quiet. What? I asked. I keep expecting something to go wrong. Something will, not tonight maybe, but eventually. Dishwasher breaks. Someone says something dumb. You discover my towel folding system. You have a system? No, that's the issue. She smiled, then reached across the table and touched my hand. I don't want perfect. That's convenient. I want steady. I turned my hand and held hers. I can do steady. I know. A year later, people still ask how Sarah and I started, and she always says, he was spying on me through a window. I always correct her. I was conducting neighborhood awareness. No, she tells whoever is listening. He was staring, briefly, long enough to water his shoes. That part is unfortunately true. We didn't rush after the courthouse. She kept her house, I kept mine. For a while, we crossed the lawn like teenagers with mortgages. Some nights she stayed late and went home because she wanted her space. Some mornings I brought coffee over and left because she had appointments and I had work. Trust came back in ordinary ways. A spare key after 6 months. A shared grocery list after 8. Her toothbrush in my bathroom and my jacket on her chair. Nothing forced. Nothing performed. Eventually we stopped pretending the fence meant anything. We sold neither house right away. We just lived between them until it became funny. Then, we found a place together on the edge of town with a bigger kitchen, a small workshop for me, and enough yard for Sarah to criticize my landscaping at full capacity. Ben helped us move and claimed he was responsible for the relationship. I told him to stop being a haunted filing cabinet, he told Sarah. She nodded. That was important work. Mrs. Alvarez came to the housewarming with a pie and told Sarah, I liked you two before you liked yourselves. Sarah hugged her. Derek faded the way people like him hate most, without an audience. The order kept him away. The settlement held. Last I heard, he had moved to another county and was telling a new version of the story to people who hadn't seen the video. I hope they ask good questions. Sarah's parents had to rebuild trust with her. They did it slowly. Her mother learned to listen before advising, which for Linda was basically a personality renovation. Her father apologized more than once, and Sarah didn't forgive him on command. I respected that. Real forgiveness doesn't work like a light switch. It works more like repairing a fence after a storm. You check every post. As for me, I don't stare through Sarah's window anymore. Mostly because we share the same windows now. Sometimes I catch her watching me from the kitchen while I'm in the yard and she opens the door. Are you coming in? She calls. Or are you planning to drown the grass again? I turn off the hose. I was waiting for a formal invitation. You live here. I still enjoy being wanted. She gives me that look, the one that started all of this. Then, get in here, Mark, and I do. Because the strange thing about trust is that it doesn't come back, because you promise yourself you'll never be hurt again. It comes back when someone gives you room to be cautious and still keeps choosing you. Sarah never asked me to forget what happened before her. I never asked her to pretend Derek hadn't left marks on her life. We just stopped letting old damage write new rules. I used to think peace meant being alone where nobody could reach me. Now I know peace can sound like a woman laughing from the kitchen because you bought hamburger buns again for no reason. And if that's public humiliation, I'll take it. Would you have stepped into Sarah's house that first night or walked away? Do you think Mark was right to keep his distance until he had real proof, or should he have acted sooner?